Hi, everyone. I'm here with Jillian and Louisa again this week for another section of Coaching Conversations. So over the last few weeks, we've been hearing lots and lots around feedback, how it's not going well. And on a good day, it's difficult to do, but in this environment that we're in, it becomes a little more challenging. And there's a lot that we need to take into effect when we're looking at what is the message we're trying to deliver and how we try to deliver it. I heard the other day of one employee who was notified via text that they were furloughed. I had another person who was getting some performance feedback. It was part of a discussion to take place, and they actually got it emailed to them about what they needed to do differently, and there was no follow-up. So clearly, we can do better.
Yeah, for sure we can do better. And, you know, feedback is something that it's a little bit of an art, but it is something that if we practice and we work hard on making it work well, we can get better at it and make it more natural and have it go more smoothly. And I just wanted to share a few tips with you all today. These are tips that I use as part of my management training, but I think that they can be useful for anybody at any point, whether you're giving feedback to a direct report, to a peer, to a manager, to a family member, to a friend. These are things that apply in all those cases. So I'm just going to quickly highlight a few of these tips that I have up on the screen right now. The first is that you always at all times want to avoid the sandwich way of giving feedback, which was something that was quite popular when I started my career, to start with something positive, then give your critical feedback, and then end with something positive, like you were leaving on a good note. And what really that does is it might make you feel better, like you've done something positive, but it actually really makes the other person not feel so good. It takes away from the message that you were giving in terms of the developmental or feedback that you wanted to give. It feels insincere. So whenever possible, make sure that you're direct, that you're sticking to the facts, that you are giving very specific feedback so that people truly understand what it is that you're trying to say. In this environment that we're in now, with it being remote, it's that much more important that you communicate directly and clearly and make sure that the person understands what it is that you're trying to say. Another important tip is when you're trying to give a difficult message is to always lead with the word I rather than you. We tend to want to say, you did this, or you were doing this, and it causes a problem, and it immediately puts people on a defensive. So when you can lead with an I noticed, I'm concerned about, I know that you would like to improve in this area, I noticed this particular thing. When you can lead with I, people will be more receptive to that feedback. Mm-hmm. In the environment we're in today also, as a final note, I just wanted to share, to be sure that you ask for permission, like when it's a good time for you and the other person to get together to have this conversation. So don't jump in with it at a time that might not feel appropriate. Make sure that other people aren't on a joint call and you're not giving that feedback publicly. So some of the same things that you would have done in the office, make sure that you carry through into this virtual environment. I think Carol's going to share with us some great tips about some other things to do about providing feedback remotely, which I think are unique to the environment we're in today.
Yeah, so a few things to think about. One is around choosing your technology. So are you going to be on a phone call with them? Are you going to be on a Zoom? Or is it Slack? Finding out what's going to be useful and comfortable to you, but also the recipient of that feedback, and checking in with them. It's also really important to check in on their readiness. Are they ready, as Louisa mentioned, to hear the feedback or to hear the feedback at this time? The other thing that's going on for all of us is that we are not by ourselves necessarily in our own environment or our work space. We've got family members around, we've got pets around, we've got comings and goings. So my time when I want to give you the feedback may not be as conducive to your time when you want to receive the feedback. It's also critical to build some rapport. Some of us may think, that's taking time away from what I want to give as the message, but you want to check in with people, especially at this time. Where are they? What are they doing? How are they feeling? Another thing that's really important as we're all working remotely at this current time is thinking about the visuals. Is there something that you can share a screen with them? Is there something that you can send ahead of time? Making sure that they have the ability to take notes, to listen and learn and take notes. We're not all visual learners, we're not all auditory learners. We all have different learning styles. So make sure that when you're giving this feedback to someone, they have an ability to receive that feedback. It's also important to ask clarifying questions. And Louise is going to talk a little bit more about clarifying questions in a moment. And we're also going to talk about triggers. But, thinking about what are the questions that can help confirm that the person is actually hearing the message that you're relaying. It's really critical to identify steps. What are the next steps in this process? What have we done today? What's going to happen next and when? And to say not only that you are going to follow up, but that you actually do follow up.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the critical steps to sort of take what you have with feedback and make it more remote. It's critical to give feedback all of the time, but even so right now, it's a harder process to do. You can do better. You can get better at this.
Oh, thank you, Carol. Those are some great tips. And I especially love the clarifying questions. I think the power of the question, whether it be a clarifying yes or no question or an open-ended question, is a great way to proceed through a conversation that feels difficult. Being able to ask someone where they're at, how you can support them, what is it that they're thinking or feeling, is a good way to make sure that they understand the message and also to help them share how they might be feeling about the situation. Jill, I know that you have a lot of great information on how to receive feedback. You like to talk about that. So share with us some tips around being the recipient.
Yeah, so there's a great book, one of my favorite books on feedback, called Thanks for the Feedback by Doug Stone, Sheila Heen. And in that book, they talk about the triggers that exist for people when we give feedback. And those triggers are either, it's not true, so I won't accept the feedback. I don't have a strong enough relationship with you. You're not my boss, you're my coworker. And the third one, which I think is probably the most sort of igniting for people, is something about their identity. So you told me that I wasn't organized, and I consider myself to be a very organized person. So just be aware that people have triggers and that those can go off when we give feedback. People often switch tracks as well. So they try to move away from the feedback and go into a different conversation. So you can just gently bring them back to the fact that the feedback is this. And then also just knowing that people have a response, a baseline reaction to feedback, which can be short or deep. And they also have a swing, meaning that they can react either very quickly or they can react very slowly. And they also have a sort of sustain and recovery period. So some people might take the feedback and take 2 hours and they're fine, or they could take 2 days and they're fine. So just be aware that there are triggers, they exist, and just sort of let people have the process that they need to have.
Excellent. I love that. Those are great ideas. Thank you so much. I think the bottom line and what we really want to make sure you all know about today is that feedback can't stop just because we're all working from home. We need to keep it going. We need to make sure people understand how they're doing and how they can continue to improve, and in what ways could they be more effective, and make sure that we're continuing to have those conversations. People want that information, and the more that you give it, the better you're going to get at it. It's just like a muscle. The more you use it, the better it's going to get. So I hope this was helpful for a few tips today. We're always happy to help more. If there's anything more we can do, please just reach out to any one of us. And we hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.